But I left Florence and I went here, and when I got to Jackson, Wyoming, a good friend in the Hawaiian shirt back there, he met me, put me up at a nice place, he and his wife, for a couple of days. And then they left. It's always sad when somebody visits and then they leave. But I was waiting for her, and I would have been halfway across Nebraska. So what I did is I turned north here, and I went through Yellowstone National Park. Yellowstone National Park was a high of the trip. You know, I keep talking about these high experiences, but I'm serious. You know, when I went through Yellowstone, there were a bunch of people lined the bridge, and they all clapped as I was going by. It made me cry, really. I mean, you put a lot of energy into it. It's easy to think this is just a stroll. And sometimes I'll dismiss it like, oh yeah, it was nothing. So, but you deal with a lot of things when you undertake a trip like this. And I'm a person who doesn't like to ask anybody for anything. I'm the guy that breaks his leg and I'll crawl a half-mile home rather than, will you help me, right? But you cannot take a trip like this and not ask for help. You have to. You get in these situations, and what I found is everybody will respond if you ask in a positive way. So that was very positive. And the other thing I found, that no matter what happened, sometimes you tend to get a little uptight in our daily lives. Ah, the damn shoelace broke. I'm making up something. You know, whatever. My cart went over a hill, which it did. I was reading a highway marker near Wind River Indian Reservation. I'm a history guy, right? I'm reading it, turn around, there goes my cart down the road. And I'm running. Next thing I know, and the handle broke. You know, but by the time I was in Wyoming, I was already mellowed out with all this stuff. It's like, well, you get a stick, and a universal fix-all now is duct tape. I had duct tape, and I kind of fixed it up, and I called the guy, and he ended up sending a thing to a small post office. I had a guy make this cart for me. I'm missing the handles here, by the way, but you'll see it. So I went from from the Pacific to the Atlantic. And I'm going to get to the slides real quick here, but I do want to, I have a little show and tell here. This is very important to me. Shouldn't tell you this, but I make homemade beer, and these are yeast containers. Didn't never tell the kids that, but they make great little receptacles. And when I was at the Pacific, being from Eugene, I had about 75 students and parents walk the first 3 miles with me. Very moving. They got on the bus, headed back to Eugene, and I continued on towards home, which is a little weird, but you know what I mean as Oregonians. But I collected a little bit of the ocean water and sand here. And I carried this all the way across the United States. And I had this one here that was empty. And so when I would talk to a newspaper reporter, somebody from television, they'd like to, you know, they always like the visuals and stuff. And it did the whole sea to shining sea kind of thing. And I did walk every step of the way. You know, construction zones are a problem. I don't know if anybody's ever done highway construction. Well, certain states like Wyoming, you as a pedestrian or bicyclist are not even allowed to be in a construction zone. You know, you have to take a ride. Well, I was in Wyoming, and you know, the flagger, you know, I kind of talked my way past him, and I'm heading on down, and this pickup truck came flying up. And these 4 burly guys got out like a press gang. I don't know if you know your history, but the press gang was, English would come and they'd grab sailors in the bars and streets, and then, you know, they'd wake up there on a ship. You just had no choice in the matter. And he said, you have to get in the truck and take a ride. They were unprepared for what I had to say. I said, no. And they, okay, what do we do with this guy? You know, I says, I have to walk every step. And they said, well, we'll lose our jobs. They went from tough guys to like that real quick. So I said, I'll tell you what, I'll compromise. You can put my cart with its stuff in your pickup truck and you take it, and I'll hop over the fence. All these highways have fences along both sides. So I hopped outside of the zone. I'm out there with the rattlesnakes and, you know, prickly pear and a pair of shorts and stuff, looking out for things. And I walked those 2 or 3 miles there just so I could say I walked every step in. Literally, I did. And I'm going to show you some slides and kind of talk about this a little bit more as we go through this stuff, and hopefully this will all just, I'm not the electronic gizmo, the sound's not working, so, but that's okay. All right, obviously that. All right, this is Cascade Middle School, not you're interested in that, but this is my last year students. They're sophomores this year at Willamette High School, if you've ever heard of that place in Eugene. And here we are at the beach. Perfect day for taking off, perfect day. Kids and parents and some teachers, and here I am bending down right there. You notice my feet are in the water. I truly did want to go from ocean's edge to ocean edge. And there's a little container I showed you, and it was just really nice to have these kids with me. Now this gives you a better idea what my cart looked like. If you see, this is a pale pink. It was bright red when I took off, and these are the flags that I could have put up. I forgot to bring the handle with me today. But one nice thing about this cart, I don't know if you've ever heard of Burley Bike Manufacturing or not, but one of the guys who started Burley in Eugene years ago was out of the business. They're all made in Hong Kong and Philippines now, or China and Philippines. And he made me a personal cart, and I could test it, and then he would, you know, fix it or adjust it as I would, you know, kind of say what it needed. But this thing, excuse me, this thing swung both ways. And so I could pull it like a horse. There, I had a little waist strap, and I could pull, or this thing would flip back the other way, and you can imagine me pushing it. Before I took off, I thought I would be pulling it. That's just how I pictured myself going across the United States, like da 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 da. This thing weighed up to 170 pounds. Okay, but what I found, surprisingly, it was easier to push. The only time I really pulled it was going up steep inclines or down steep inclines, and the one other situation was the wind. I was unprepared for the wind. I had two big concerns before I took off. One was the traffic. I didn't want to be killed. You have to imagine, I went 3,200 miles. How many cars passed me? How many trucks passed me? It was so bad in Iowa. I was there during October, during the harvest season. What's with Iowa, right? Corn checks, rice checks. You know, used to be a commercial on TV, you know. But what's the big deal? I didn't expect problems there. But the traffic was so, I mean, every kind of agricultural vehicle was on the road you can think of. Trucks hauling corn and soybeans and sugar beets, wide loads with combines and pieces sticking out. And I went with the traffic. You might think, well, it's easier going facing the traffic, but really it's not. Now, it's a problem in Wyoming because they tell you have to do that, but you know, that's when they're around. So I was hassled by the police, and there was no shoulder on the road. As long as I had like what we would call a bike lane here, or paved shoulder, I was fine. Okay? But in Iowa, it's just gravel, thick gravel. And if you've ever ridden a bike or tried to push a wheelbarrow in the sand or dirt or soft dirt, it's a real hassle. And so what I ended up doing is resorting to traveling at night. Now, that may sound kind of strange, but it was much safer because you could see cars coming from the longest distance. And most of the traffic wasn't on the road. All the farm stuff, it started picking up about 4:30 in the morning. But I share this with you because we're adaptable, and you have to adapt. And I try to incorporate this more into the lesson if, you know, you guys were like public school kids or something and thinking about your future and how you deal with things. So anyway, whoops, I just skipped one, but that's okay. Here I am heading to good old Eugene. We can skip over that. I can tell you that sometimes we don't appreciate what we have. I was in Arizona. I have an uncle down there as an educator, and I was doing a program for kids, and the kids in Arizona said, oh man, Oregon is beautiful. If you've ever had visitors from out of state, you appreciate it a little bit more when you take people around. Sometimes we don't even see what's all around. But it's beautiful beginning, beautiful beginning. No hassles, no hassles at all. Here I'm in Sisters. I did take my, my outfit. I took a blue one, which you'll see in a moment. I have a couple of them. I also took, I'm a history nut, I told you this. I'm trying to promote the need for studying American history. I'm trying to promote people reading about the Constitution and Bill of Rights, you know. So I try to act it out and show it. And so here you have 1, 2, 3. These are 3 different editions of the Declaration of Independence, and there were different editions. And this is a Richard Henry Lee resolution, which I won't even bother with you right now, which is our real independence statement. But anyway, and then I have my Bill of Rights. So I took the stuff with me. This has compartments. So all my historical stuff was in this top compartment, which took up a lot of valuable space. But it was worth it for me. And again, it's in the push mode. You can see I had bike mirrors and headlights on it and the whole thing. There you go. Those are the 3 of those things I carried across the United States. There's just a tourist, but that's my other outfit and my little haversack there that I keep copies of the Bill of Rights in. Again, Oregon being very beautiful. I'll make this just a slideshow. Eastern Oregon. You know, people around the country are unaware of Eastern Oregon. They think of everything like the Willamette Valley or the Coast Range with the fir trees, or the western side of the Cascades, and you have to explain to people, no, Eastern Oregon is very different. And speaking of different, I was in a little place called Gentura. Now, you're a pretty sharp cookie if you know where that is. It's a little wayside. There's one restaurant called the Oasis Motel, and it happened to be on the 4th of July. And I had called before, and they didn't have any room at the inn, and I thought, well, one last chance, I'll check when I got there, and they had somebody cancel, and they said, well, we want to warn you we're having a 4th of July party today. They didn't know who I was, right? And I said, oh, really? Oh, yeah, cool. So I'm out there eating beans and wieners with these people, and I'm talking to this old guy, Dave Clark was his name, an old rancher over there, and I told him what I was up to, and I had my outfit. He said, oh, please go put this thing on. So he convinced me. I went and I did an impromptu lesson on Independence Day to this community. But I want you to know this guy and I had nothing in common politically. Now, I didn't share my politics. My goal was to listen to people. Now, so I'm talking to a racist in Idaho, and he's going on about how people are like animals in a zoo, and the baboons are with baboons, and the orangutans are with orangutans, and blacks are here and whites are here, and it's. I didn't say, hey, I think you're crazy or I disagree. The only way I would do that, I might pose a question to people, make them stop and think a little bit in kind of a sneaky way of getting them to think about what they were saying. But I wanted to hear what people had to say. You got the guy in Wyoming with the big old gun on his hip in the restaurant, made me feel uncomfortable. I talked to him. I said, yo, I'm a civil libertarian. I support the Bill of Rights, da-da-da-da-da. I said, but why do you feel that? Boy, he got all tight about that. But I wanted to hear what people had to say. So I didn't share my politics or anything, and that's what I was saying earlier about the Tea Party. I can talk to anybody because it's what really unites us, folks. It's just a little Gentura 4th of July. Okay, here's not typical campsite. This is a nice one. It's just east of Gentura, little off-road. Perfect sort of thing, but this typical little thing for me, set up at night, I have my stuff. It's all bare bones. I ate a lot of freeze-dried food. Out west, places to eat are hard to come by. In the east, it's not so bad. But I learned not to trust a map. You're out there with your atlas, oh, Grover Junction. When I get there, I'll get a ham sandwich and a glass of orange juice or something. You get to Grover Junction, it's a dilapidated barn and 2 houses. That's Grover Junction, and so I learned not to trust maps. So I had to carry everything with me. So I had up to 1-gallon jugs of water in here. Now water's about 8 pounds a gallon. 5 times 8, it's like 40 if I remember my math. Plus I had all the other stuff I had to carry. So I did have this thing weighed. Before I had all the water, when I was going through Springfield, I have a kid that was an ex-student of mine who worked at a quarry. He said, oh, Mr. Brown, let's put it on the scale. And it was like 155 then. So I never really did weigh it at max, but it was really pretty heavy. But just typical, just another night along the road. But I want you to know I slept beside dumpsters. I was so tired, and I can't remember the little place in Idaho, Mount Ayr, A-Y-R or something. I was so tired. I said, where can I stay? The guy says, there's a campground 3 miles on the other side of town. Guys, I'd walked all night long and all that day. Now, I couldn't go anywhere. I saw a gas station with a dumpster and some weeds behind it and some old rusted trucks. Nobody's going to bother me. Now, I want you to know I would have never done that as a teacher. I did things, you do things you wouldn't normally do. I was in eastern Nebraska, and I was in this little town. There was not a place to stay. It was dark. The lightning was coming. Here comes the rain. I looked around, and there was one of these like hardware store sort of places with these garden sheds, right? These little barns that you put in your backyard, put your lawnmower in, stuff like that. I looked around. Nobody's here. Dark, right? Door's unlocked. I said, that's home for the night. And there was a little incident with that too. In the morning, I got out of there kind of scared. I thought the cops were going to bust me and put the lights on me and who knows what. But my point is, you end up doing a lot of things that you wouldn't normally do. Again, I go back to asking for help. But I tried to get up and leave before dawn every day. Now, that window's going to shorten as the season's going to progress. But I was always on the road before it was daylight. Now, this is Snake River over here. And this represents what happened to me time and again. I was sitting along the side of the road near the blackberry bushes. It was the end of the day. I was hot. I was tired. Oh, what's going to go on?